Hello everyone, I want to welcome you to another edition of Commish Notes. This week we will be recapping Week 9. I apologize for the delay. I was a stay-at-home dad today and I just didn't have my hands full. So without much ado, we will get to Commish Notes. We begin with Wide Right keeping their faint playoff hopes alive with a comeback victory over POC. Wide Right received solid efforts from Drew Brees, Antonio Gates, and the paralegal. With running back injuries mounting and the prospects of starting Alex Green for a third consecutive week, Rob pulled a great pickup selecting Isaac Redman, who rumbled for 21.1 points, which is 16.3 points over his season average. POC, 1 week after proclaiming the wagons have been circled, it now appears that it's just a bunch of scattered wagons with no direction. POC received a good effort from Cam Newton, who finished with his third highest total on the season, along with Steve Smith, who scored his first touchdown of the season. Good trade, Dusty. Larry Fitzgerald, Roddy White, and newly acquired Owen Daniels also chipped in with double figures as POC had their third highest total of the season at 87.64 points. We all knew it was a matter of time, but it finally happened. Run DMC was injured in the first half of his game against Tampa Bay, finishing with a disappointed 1.7 points and diagnosed with the dreaded high ankle sprain. Given McFadden's pain tolerance, he should be available for Week 10 of the 2014 season. Not all was lost for Mullis, as he received the Marty Herney GM pickup of the week for selecting Justin Medlock, who is owned in 1% of all fantasy leagues. Removing Medlock's 18-point effort against the Bears last week, Medlock averaged 3.3 points in his other 6 games. Can anyone guess how many points Medlock scored this week? Anyone? 3 points. Good call, Mullis. Moving on. Romalicious continues their terror, winning a fourth consecutive game, defeating the Brew Crew 120.54 to 43.6. Is it a coincidence the 4-game winning streak began after Romalicious cut team captain Tony Romo and changed his name? I think not. Romalicious had 7 out of 9 players go for double figures, including a 21.9 effort from Eric Decker, making him the second best wide receiver this week. Chris Johnson continues flipping off the man boobs with a 16.5 effort. Since his trade from the man boobs, Chris Johnson has a 12.98 points per game average compared to a 3.95 average per game with the boobs. Fun fact, if Wayne would have started Jay Cutler and Mikel Ashore instead of Tony Romo and Rashad Jennings, he would have defeated the Brew Crew by 102 points, removing his name from the record books as the person with the biggest blowout of all time. Just 3 weeks ago, the Brew Crew was living it up with a 4-2 record and playoffs as a realistic possibility. After 3 consecutive losses, the Brew Crew has a better chance of wearing a dress next August than boasting about a fantasy championship. The Brew Crew's 43.6 points were the lowest this season, besting POC's previous mark by 9.24 points. On the bright side, the Brew Crew did manage to miss out on the all-time record by 2.16 points. Despite not having a single player on bye, the Brew Crew still only managed to have 1 player reach double figures, Torrey Smith. Joel continues to start Kyle Rudolph despite his second 0-point effort in the last 3 weeks and a .56 point average over the same period of time. Martellus Bennett time? I think so. Eli Manning had a season-low 3 points, ranking him as the 27th best quarterback this week. Keep in mind, only 28 teams played this weekend. Fun fact, Eli Manning, Victor Cruz, and Ahmad Bradshaw were outscored by the Giants' defense. Fun fact 2, the Brew Crew were not only outscored by Romalicious, but also Romalicious' bench, which consists of 3 players, 54.36 to 43.6. Fun fact 3, Adrian Peterson has outscored Fred Jackson by 100.1 points through Week 9. Next up, the Man Boobs get back to their winning ways, taking down the SC Utes 123.88 to 90.1. The Man Boobs finished with the third highest total this week, with 7 out of 9 players hitting double figures. Standouts include Randall Cobb, whose 18.6 points was the third highest receiver total this week, and Marshawn Lynch, who checks in with 21 points. Arian Foster disappointed with 8 points below his projections, but still good enough for 17.1 points this week. Fun fact, through week 9, Arian Foster still leads Who Dat's rostered running backs 150.7 to 139.3. Getting closer, Richard. The Utes fall to 5-4 on the season, missing a prime opportunity to move up to second place with the loss. The Utes received an average performance from their team, as only Jeremy Maclin and Tony Gonzalez really performed below their projections. I want to spend this time where I typically make fun of the losing team and just say I'm impressed by Wayne and Chad. Entering the season, Chad and Wayne combined for a 27-38 record all-time in fantasy football. Through week 9 this season, they have combined for a 10-10 record. Gentlemen, congratulations on being average this season. Next up, the Patriots continue their dominance, defeating No One's Daddy 147.26 to 68.9. The Patriots, despite missing 4 starters this week, still managed to put up the highest total in fantasy this season. The Patriots received double-digit efforts from 6 out of 9 starters, including pickup of the week New Orleans Saints defense, who scored 21 points in week 9, only 10 points less than their season total through the first 8 weeks. The performance of the week goes to Doug Martin, who finished with the highest score in fantasy this season with 51.2 points. Fun fact, Doug Martin would have defeated the Brew Crew by 8.5 points this week. After showing signs of life, No One's Daddy drops back to their familiar spot as Toyota's biggest blowout of the week. The 78.36 point blowout was the highest total this week, but unfortunately still 15.94 points short of the all-time record held by POC in their defeat of the Fat Boys last year. See, Molas, I threw you a bone. That's the least I could do for the 11th place team this season. Outside of Brandon Pettigrew's 1.1 total, the rest of Dave's team played okay, with the exception of Matt Stafford, who had a season-low 11.2 points. Through week 9, Brandon Pettigrew ranks as the 18th best tight end this season, behind 5 other tight ends that are currently available via free agency. Hint, hint. Fun fact, despite the 68.9 points, No One's Daddy still has 30.2 more points than POC. The improbable happened as Who Dat snaps their 5-game losing streak, taking out the Fussies 116 to 78.78. Who Dat was able to overcome 2.1 points production from starting tailbacks Dexter McCluster and Justin Forsett, which is funny because Justin Forsett is a backup, third string actually for the Texans, and Dexter McCluster is a slot wide receiver. And they're starting on your fantasy team, Ryan. Who Dat received great efforts from Brandon Marshall and Chicago's defense, who combined for 57.2 points. Who Dat also received double-figure efforts from RG3, Andre Johnson, Malcolm Floyd, and Jimmy Graham. Fun fact, this is the first week the Saints and Who Dat have won in the same week. The fussy ones knew they were going to be in trouble this week, as second-round picks and team captain Steven Jackson was on bye, but no one saw this blowout coming. The loss snaps Dusty's 4-game winning streak as he puts up his second-worst performance of the season. Fussy continues to get great production from Matt Forte, who finished with 20.8 points, and Lawrence Steins, who has now reached double figures in 6 out of his 9 games this season. One has to wonder how much better the production would be if the Bears would stop wasting carries on Michael Bush. Unfortunately, only one other player reached double figures this week, as Matt Ryan finished 10 points under his projection with 14. Fun fact, Dusty's starting wide receivers, Percy Harvin and Denarius Moore, were outscored by Panthers' 4th-string receiver, Armani Edwards, 8.2 to 8. Fun fact, too, prior to his long catch on Sunday, Armani Edwards in his 2.5-year career had 12 rushing yards, 11 passing yards, and 12 receiving yards, good for 2.84 fantasy points in his career. Good call trading a second-round pick, Marty Herney. The pick is finally paying dividends now that you no longer have a job. The Balling Click took out some aggression on the Ramrodders, winning 136.34 to 98.32. The Click's team had a boom or bust approach with 6 players going for 16 plus and 2 players going for 1 or less. The Click was led in scoring by Adrian Peterson, whose 31.3 points were the second highest total for a running back this week, and San Diego's defense, who also finished with the second highest mark amongst defenses. While the Balling Click had the second highest score in Week 9, there were still some lowlights. Akeem Nicks continues his terrible season, posting 1 point this week. Nicks, through Week 9, currently ranks as the 52nd best receiver behind the likes of T.Y. Hilton, Paris Hilton's brother, of course, Brandon Stokely, who's 36 years old, and former member of New Kids on the Block, Donnie Avery. Not to be outdone, Jared Cook posted a negative 1.4 total, which would put him as the 242nd ranked tight end this week. The Ramrodders continue their up-and-down season, opening up the year on a 3-game losing streak, followed by a 4-game winning streak, and now a 2-game losing streak. The Ramrodders were led by Aaron Rodgers, who bounced back this week with a 34.02 points, good for second best this week amongst quarterbacks. The Ramrodders also received double-digit efforts from Sidney Rice and Michael the Burner Turner, along with the Broncos defense. Unfortunately, Heath Miller finally failed to catch a touchdown, and Jordy Nelson was injured earlier in the game, netting Brandon the same total this week as former Packers wide receiver Sterling Sharp. Fun fact, in the last 2 weeks, kickers have combined for 35 points against the Ramrodders. Moving on to Week 10, we have the Patriots and the Man Boobs at 7-2. Then we have 8 teams at 5-4 and 4-5. Everyone's still got a pretty good, solid chance of making the playoffs, except for no one's daddy. Dave, I would spend your remaining Sundays going dress shopping. SC Utes take on the Brew Crew this week. The Utes look to move to 6-4, while the Brew Crew are looking for moral victories, like, breaking 50 points this week. In the next matchup, we get a sneak preview of the Tulip Bowl, as the 11th place POC takes on the 12th place No One's Daddy. I predict the first team to 70 points will win this week, although 60 might get it done. The Fussy Dusties look to bounce back as they take on the Patriots. Bad news for Dusty, the Patriots play the Bills, and the Patriots coach Bill Belichick has a tendency to run up the score when he has the opportunity. Ramrodders look to right the ship as they take on Houdat. The winner of this game can move one step closer to the playoffs, while the loser is more than likely on the outside looking in. In another matchup of 4-5 teams, Remalicious looks to extend their win streak to 5 as they take on Wide Right. The big question in this matchup is which Wide Right running back will get hurt this week. Our last matchup features by far the most sex appeal as the Man Boobs take on Ball and Click. Only one team can win, but damn, both guys are handsome. That's it for me this week. I hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next week.